Man's Search for Meaning is one of the 10 most influential books as voted by the Library of Congress. It has been translated into 24 languages and is famous worldwide. The author, Viktor Frankl, was a renowned psychiatrist hailed as a miracle worker of the 20th century. During the Nazi era, as a Jew, he was imprisoned in a concentration camp, nicknamed the Death Factory. Yet, he not only survived that hellish cage, but also pioneered logotherapy, reigniting the will to live for countless desperate souls. This book is divided into two parts. The first part records the author's experiences in the concentration camp. In the second part, he combines his experiences with academic theory to create a therapeutic method that helps people find the meaning of rebirth from a dead end and reclaim a glorious path in their own lives. If I had to sum up this book in 3 words, they would be choice, suffering, and meaning. A famous Russian writer once said, "I am only afraid of one thing. I am not worthy of my sufferings. I have endured so much, and I must find meaning in what I have been through." How do we turn suffering into meaning? Perhaps it's just one step away. A step called choice, and the distance between each of us is also different in this step. Wandering through the mountains and rivers of this world, who doesn't cherish their own life? But when the storm is past and the rain has stopped, you'll suddenly realize that all the pain you've encountered in this life was actually here to save you. If you are struggling with pain, with despair in your life, if you are filled with countless confusions, sorrows, and fears, you can find strength from this book. Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to Step Forward, the channel for personal development through great books. This week, I want to share a message called Everything That Hurts You Is Here to Save You, inspired by the famous psychology book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Let's dive in. Choice. You can be stripped of everything, but you can't lose the power to choose. In the 1930s, all of Europe was plunged into the terror of Nazi Germany. At that time, Frankl was the head of the neurology department at a hospital in Vienna, the capital of Austria, and had a happy family. To ensure his safety, the U.S. consulate in Vienna invited him to get an immigration visa. However, he couldn't bear to leave behind his parents, family, and patients, so he chose to stay. Unexpectedly, just a few months later, the Nazis occupied Vienna, and he and his wife, parents, and siblings were all arrested and sent to concentration camps. Along with Frankl, there were 1,500 others who suffered a similar fate. Many of them were businessmen, doctors, teachers, and scientific researchers. However, these once dignified and respected people were turned into prisoners, trampled and humiliated at will. They constantly faced the threat of gas chambers, crematoriums, or being beaten to death. All their belongings were confiscated, and they were locked up like cattle in camps that were like pens holding up to 200 people. Every day they were given only a small piece of bread and a bowl of thin soup, wore only a flimsy set of clothes, and had to repair railways and tracks, doing heavy labor. At night, they huddled together on wooden planks, 9 people sharing 2 blankets, using their mud-caked shoes as pillows. If they were a bit careless and unlucky enough to encounter guards in a bad mood, they would be brutally beaten. Even more terrifying, once their bodies gave out and they could no longer do heavy work, they would be sent to the gas chamber to end their life. In the concentration camp, almost everyone thought about suicide. The easiest way was to run into the electric fence. So to end it all permanently was not difficult. To continue to survive, to stay alive here, was the hardest thing. So what could have kept Frankl from losing his will to live and even enabled him to fight his way back to save his own life? For him, first and foremost, it was the power of choice. He always believed that even in the worst psychological and physical conditions, a person can still maintain a certain degree of spiritual freedom and independent consciousness, and from there choose their own behavior and reactions, as well as decide what kind of person they want to be.
The first time Frankl had to shower naked in the concentration camp, he realized that, apart from their naked bodies, everyone had nothing. Accumulated wealth meant nothing. So many of your things, everything external to your inner self, can be taken away by some uncontrollable force at any moment. The only thing that cannot be taken away is your freedom to choose how you respond. We cannot control what happens in our lives, but we can control our emotions and actions when faced with these events. All the prisoners in the concentration camp faced the same incredibly harsh living environment, but their reactions were different. Some chose to give up, some chose to become numb, some chose to persevere to the end. So what will you choose when faced with pain? Life is full of ups and downs, and it always comes with suffering. You will always have a choice other than giving up, other than letting go, other than blaming yourself. It's a choice to dare to face the difficulties and never give up easily. As long as you do that, even when you're standing at the edge of a cliff, it can't make you sink and fall into it. So remember, everything in this world has a cause and effect. Everything that makes you suffer is here to save you. Suffering. What makes you suffer will make you stronger. In 100 years of solitude, it is said, "We walk on the eternal journey of life, running on a rugged road, resurrected in failure. Sorrow clings to the body, suffering falls everywhere. We are tired but cannot stop. We suffer but cannot avoid it." Suffering is a normal part of life. If you understand this, your heart will be at peace, and you'll also have abundant strength to embrace and face challenges. Suffering always has its good side. As the great poet Goethe once said, "Remember well all that suffering leaves behind. When the suffering passes, it will become sweet." Life is like a spice. The more it's ground by ups and downs, the richer its flavor becomes. Although Frankl had a strong will to live, the daily torture also pushed him to the brink of despair. Like other prisoners, he also suffered from severe swelling, illness from long-term lack of food, clothing, and sleep. The experience of being on the edge of death time and again made him rethink the meaning of life. He observed all sorts of people in the concentration camp and saw that as long as they held the image of a loved one in their hearts, they would never give up on life. Therefore, he decided not to let himself die quietly from fatigue or illness, but to see the concentration camp as a place to practice and temper his mind. 3 years of imprisonment, yet it made his heart stronger and stronger. At the same time, he gained a deep understanding of human nature, from which he developed a unique form of psychotherapy. It was the physical pain that spurred an endless spiritual motivation in him. Nietzsche once said, "Only after experiencing hellish suffering can one develop the strength to create heaven." No pain is untreatable. No collapse is final. Everything that is lost will return in a different way. It's human nature to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. But if we know that in extreme hardship one has the opportunity to achieve spiritual sublimation, we will never see suffering as a disaster and will not feel unlucky when facing adversity. Meaning, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. This is a quote from Nietzsche, and also the maxim that Frankl used to explain the importance of the meaning of life for a person. After all, suffering comes meaning. In the concentration camp, Frankl witnessed many people die not because of lack of food or medicine, but because they had no reason to continue living. Statistics show that the highest mortality rate in concentration camps was during Christmas. In modern life, the same thing happens. Many people suffer from depression and psychological disorders because they can't find the meaning of life, and they lose their way in a society where they feel caught between existence and nothingness. That's why Frankl put forward the view, what keeps a person going is not hope, but meaning. Man lives to find the meaning of his own life. For humanity, it is more important than achieving pleasure or avoiding pain.
How much you can endure is how much you can achieve. After being rescued from the concentration camp in 1945, Frankl found himself terribly alone. His parents, brother, and his beloved pregnant wife all died in prison from illness and starvation. His fellow survivors from the camp had emigrated to other countries. With no relatives and no friends, he decided to return to his old profession as a psychiatrist to help those who were mentally tortured after the war. He threw himself into his work, combining his own experiences with academic theory to create logotherapy. Through lectures and counseling, he saved many people. It was the experience of escaping death that ignited his great passion for life, and he was always ready to experience new things. At 67, he started learning to fly and got his pilot's license after a few months.
At 80, he was determined to challenge himself with outdoor sports, climbing the highest and largest mountain range on the European continent. Until he was over 90, he still talked to visitors from all over the world and personally answered letters every week to help people with their questions. You could say that the war destroyed Frankl's life and took away his loved ones, but he chose to rise from the ashes of suffering and live, shining like a halo. There's a saying, "Suffering is a stepping stone for a genius, a fortune for the capable, and an abyss for the weak." Suffering is always a test, a mandatory course in your own life. How much pain you can endure is how much you can achieve. From choice to overcoming suffering and finally grasping the great meaning of life, Frankl's life has left an eternal inspiration for millions of people around the world, and the logotherapy he founded is still helping people today. I hope all of us, when faced with difficulties, suffering, and failure, will look to man's search for meaning and, like Frankl, rise above all suffering to have a strong inner self, constantly creating and being enthusiastic about life. Enjoy your present life as if you were living it for the second time. All right, that's it for this week's video. Thank you for listening. If you found this video helpful, please share it with those who need it. Don't forget to leave your feelings and thoughts in the comments below. Support me with a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to catch the latest videos every week. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next ones.